Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Coder. I'm Chris, and in this episode we're going to continue right from where we left off with the MultiSpieler series, and what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to create a room, how to join a room, and before we start doing that, actually, I want to talk about another important thing that we need to do, and that is we need to open our script first. So we're going to start with this game script here. Okay, I'm going to open that up. And in here, we're doing this in the start method. We've got the mp.connect where we're connecting to the server. We also want to make sure that we also disconnect from the server, okay? And the only time you're going to want to disconnect from the server, in our case, is when the application quits. So there's this really cool method that we can utilize for that, and that is the on application quit. Okay? And what that'll do is, even in the editor, when the editor stops the play or when your application quits from when it's running, this method will be called, and anything you have in this method will be executed. So what we want to do is we want to use our MP client and call the disconnect method. And what that does is it just gracefully disconnects us from the server, so that if there's any cleanup that the server needs to do from us being connected, such as removing the player from the server or removing the player from a room specifically, or anything else, we want to make sure that we disconnect properly. Now, the server does have some sort of logic built into it to where when it detects that a client was disconnected, that it does its own sort of cleanup to remove that client from any rooms or anywhere else on the server that that client may have been connected to. But to get a clean break, we should use the disconnect method, okay? So, what's next? We want to talk about what we might need in order to create a room, right? And in order to create a room, that's probably the first thing that we're going to talk about, right? So we're gonna create a room, and just right off the bat, we're gonna do that as soon as the authentication is done, okay? And what we'll do is we're gonna just call mp.createRoom, and createRoom wants us to supply the minimum amount of players, the maximum amount of players, and the token, okay? So what we'll do is we'll create a room that requires a minimum of 1 player and can have a maximum of 2. And then we will supply our token, which is going to just be from our player, our MP player object, and the token property, okay? And that's the one that we got back, remember, from our authentication. So we can actually get rid of this log, just kind of keep things clean. So here, let's put a comment, creating a new room with min players equals 1 and max players equals 2. So what that is going to mean to our server is that anytime someone tries to join that room, there can only ever be a maximum of 2 players. So obviously the player that we have now is creating the room is going to automatically join the room, and then there's one more slot for one more player to connect. You would do this kind of like if you created a turn-based game like chess or checkers or tic-tac-toe or hangman or any of those that require only 2 players. You also might want to change the minimum players required to 2, because what that'll do is, let's go ahead and do that. What that'll do is it'll make it so that the game itself can't start until the minimum amount of players has been reached, okay? And we have a special callback message for that will let us know that the game can start, okay? So the first thing we'll want to do is we'll want to receive a callback for when the room was created, so we'll know. So what we'll do is we'll first create a method. We'll call this message room created. And we're going to expect an MP data received object, and that's going to be called data. And let's see here. What we'll do is we'll create a listener on the MP event manager. And we're going to listen for MP client.message.created room. And we're going to call the message room created method. Okay. And the other one that we're going to want is the game start. Okay. So MP event manager. Actually, let's create that first. And that's going to just be private void game. Let's just be consistent. Message game can start. And we're going to again receive a data object, and then we're going to create a listener. MP event manager, start listening, MP client message type game start, message game can start. Okay. So now we've got 3 listeners, one for the authentication, which happens here. Then once the authentication piece is done, we know that we can create a room. And this is if we want to join the game right away, right? So in a lot of games, what you would normally do is you would, instead of creating a room, you would put the player into a, not a lobby, because that's sort of what you get to after you try to join a room. But I guess a game menu or an online multiplayer menu where you could choose. You could have a button to create a new room. You could have a button to join an existing room, or to exit the menu, or whatever. So you might want to think about that. The other way to kind of play this is, once the player is authenticated, instead of having him in a screen where they can pick whether or not they want to create or join a room, you can set it up so that when a player joins, they can first get a room list, which will return all of the rooms on the server, and then you can have them pick from one of the lists that don't have a maximum amount of player yet, or where the game hasn't started, and then place them in that room to join a room automatically, just a random room, right? Or you can have them create a room that then other people can join. So, in this case, we're going to go ahead and just create a room, and we're going to change this back to 1. And then we should get a callback number 1 when this room is created. So we can do debug.log, and then room created. And then just to see what we get back, let's go ahead and also, let's do this. Let's add in the data message description. Okay, so data.message.description. So this way we'll know what we're looking at. And again, here, debug.log, game can start. So data.message.description. All right. So now if we hop on back over to Unity and press play, our player should join the server. The room should get created, and we should get a room created callback. Okay. So we got this, creating room with min players, 1, max players 2, and then we've got the token. And then we've got here, we've got room created. And what we're getting here is the actual room object. Okay. So what we can do at this point is, now that we know that we're getting a room object back, and the reason that I'm showing you how to do this is because I don't have any of this stuff documented yet. I know what they are, but I want you guys to understand how to understand, how to figure out how to get these room objects yourself, or these particular data objects, and figure out what they are. They're all just JSON strings, but if you look, you can see. All right, well, let's see. This has got a room ID. It has a token, an API, and an app ID. We've got a meta, so we've got a name and description. So min players and max players. We got a date created and whether or not it's public. So all of these properties, in my opinion, would lead me to believe that this is definitely an MP room object. So let's go back to here and say, all right, well, we've got this room created. Now let's go ahead and deserialize that object. So we've got MP room equals MP room create from JSON data.message.description. Okay. And let's see here. So we've got this room, and once the room is created, we can go ahead and maybe log out some values from the room, right? So we could do like debug.log room min players, and that's going to be room.min players, and we can do debug.log room max players, and then we could also do room num players. Maybe, okay, I don't have that in here yet. Okay, so that's not there yet. You do room ID. Okay. So now when we go back to Unity, disconnect here, and then reconnect. Alright, so now we see here we've got min players, max players, and we've got a room ID. So, the other thing that's happening is if we check out the website, let's go ahead and log in. We'll see that we have rooms 1, apps 1. It's also, I think, inaccurate at this point, because actually no, that's right. We've got one room, we've got one player, and we can also see here that a private room was created. So the thing between the rooms, right? So we've got the public rooms and the private rooms. The private rooms are the rooms that are created on demand from the player when creating a room, right? We're calling the create room method. That creates a private room, and the reason that you have this difference between the private and the public rooms is that because when, let's say that, I don't know if you've ever seen a game where you go in and you see like a room list, right? Any other type of online game where you can actually, you go to multiplayer mode and you see like a whole list of rooms that you can pick from, right? So that's what that kind of is, the public rooms. That's what that's for. That's for like, if you want to support like a whole bunch of players in one room, and, like let's say you're playing like a hide and seek game and you want to say, this is the hardest hide and seek ever room, whatever. You create that room, and then, that room can literally be a static reference that you can, look at every time for your game, and it can always be available. The private rooms are more like one-off rooms, right? Let's say that you want to go play like a chess game, and you create a room specifically because you want to play chess, what you would do is you would get a room list. That's a list of private rooms where there might be one player looking for another player to play with. And if there aren't any available, then you would default to the create room method, to which you would then sit in a lobby waiting for someone else to join to play with you. Okay, so that's what the private rooms are for. So, and the way these work is, and these buttons, like I said, these don't work yet. I'm still working out that issue, but if someone disconnects that's in a private room and they're the last player, it'll automatically clean these things up. So if we go in here now and we press the play button to end, we'll see that switching back over to the site, we have 0 players, 0 rooms. The private room is gone. The players is gone. So all of that is, you know, self-cleaning, right? So let's think about what else we need to add here. If we wanted to... Okay, so there's another little handy callback that we can have here, and that's literally for when there's not enough players, right? So we can do private void message, not enough players, and then MP data received data, and then we go in here and say debug.log. Not enough players. And this is called when there aren't enough players yet to start the game. So that means that a player is joining, right? So such as our player. And this is all wrong. So that means that a player is joining, such as the player that we have right now. And let's go ahead and change this to minimum players 2. So what we should do is, because we're now creating a room that requires at least 2 players, we should get a message back telling us that we don't have enough players to start the game. Okay? And that we need to make sure that we have a callback for. Let's see, MP event manager, start listening, MP client, not enough players. Message, not enough players. Okay. So anytime this is triggered is when a player joins. Okay. And there aren't enough players. So let's go ahead and save that. Let's come over here and click on play. And for some reason, we are not getting that callback, which is kind of strange, honestly. We should be getting it. Interesting. So we did join. So I'm going to just have a look at my MP client object and see if there's anything strange happening. So we've got not enough players. What happens when we create room? Join room. You know what we can do is we can check if we can also check to see if we receive the join room callback. Okay, so that looks like this. We'll call this message joined room, message player join room. MP data received, data, message player joined room, okay. MP event manager, start listening, MP client, message player joined, message player joined room. And what we get back here is an MP player object, so we can do MP player player equals MP player dot create from JSON, and that'll be data dot message dot description. So this right here should tell us that, and then we can let's do this. Let's do debug log the player ID. All right. So let's see if this works. It should work. Okay, so that we got back. So we know that the player joined. So this player joined room callback, what happens there is that anytime someone joins a room, even our own player, we get a message back from the server to let us know that a player joined. So what I'm wondering is yeah, I'm gonna have to do some more checking on that game start method, because we should be getting both. Now what I'm thinking is that I'm thinking that for some reason I may have programmed that to work only when someone uses the room join method. And you know, we can actually test that out, right? Because we were going to go over how to join a room anyways. So let's go ahead and create a public room. We'll call this room test. Description will be test. Minimum players will be 1. Max players, so let's make that 10. And let's click add. Okay, so the room ID is this, 163. Alright, so I'm just going to copy this and click OK, because we're going to do something bad right now. We're going to hard code that value into here. So let's say that we don't create a room. Instead, what we'll do is, since we've authenticated, we're going to join a room. So we're going to do mp.joinRoom. And what we want here is the room ID. So we'll pass in the room ID as a string. And we also need to pass in the token. So player.token. Okay. So now when we join this room, in my opinion, what we should be receiving back is, number one, we should be getting this callback here. We should then also be getting this callback, because we set the minimum amount of players for that room to 1. And we should not be getting this callback. So let's see what happens. Okay. Okay, so that's about what I expected. So now you'll see that this game can start. That method is now being called. The game can start, and that's actually the message. That's the only thing that we're sending. We're not sending any objects or anything, so that's just kind of, you know, redundant. So let me just have a quick look here. So we didn't get this callback because we didn't create a room. We got this callback because we joined a game that can be started because there are enough players. We also received this player joined room because we joined the room. So the only other thing that we can try out right now is we'll go in and we'll recreate the room. We're going to delete this room now. And we're going to add a new room. And we're going to set the min players to 2 and the max players to 2. And this time what should happen is we should get the not enough players message back. So, this is the message that we're going to expect back. We have to change the room ID because we have a new one now. And we're going to save that. And then we're going to hop over to Unity and wait for the reloading of the script assemblies. Okay. Press play. Okay, so we have not enough players in room, but we have the player ID. So exactly as I said, because we have our min players set to 2, and that's why. Okay, and the other thing is that I will need to work out sending the message back, either this or this, for when a player creates a room. So that's something that I need to fix, a bug fix on my end on the server. So it's kind of cool that I guess we're going through this because, you know, this is how I also discover some bugs. I kind of, you know, I don't usually go through it like this one step at a time. I actually have a whole, like, project already built that sort of functions the way that I want it, and I never even considered that the game couldn't start if someone created a room, which is completely possible because if you create a room that requires 2 players, then the game shouldn't be able to start, and you should have to sit in a lobby. Or, if you don't care about that, you can still start the game, right? So, you can build this game however you want. You're just using these callbacks as cues to kind of give you an idea of when to be able to do certain things, right? So, you can certainly try to create a room before you receive an authentication message back, but it probably won't work because you won't have a token. You can start a game even if if you're the only player in the room. You can still tell it to start the game even if you set the min players to 2. If you ignore the you know, the callback message that there aren't enough players, or you're not waiting for the game start message. So these 2 things are actually completely optional. If you want to utilize these, they're there for you, but they're not required. This player joined, this is going to become important in the future as we build this out, because you'll want to know when new players join so that you can properly instantiate them locally in your, you know, in your instance of Unity, in your game. So, with that, I think we're going to leave it. I'm not going to do much else in this video. I kind of think it's already too long, the way it is. I tend to over-explain things. I know some of you, like, love that, and I know some of you are like, oh my god, I can't listen to another second of this. It's boring, it's a drain of my life's energy, and I just can't do it anymore. I get it, but I try to make these videos for everybody, and not just the people who want to, you know, go quickly through things. I understand that. So for you guys who want to just kind of browse through this really fast, I'll probably make some documentation, which is the right thing to do anyways. And once I have that documentation done, I will post that, and you guys can, you know, utilize that. So the other thing that I've been thinking about is that I was thinking that maybe I'll go ahead and post the app ID and API key that I created this test project on so that you guys can kind of try out the server. I know not everybody wants to support on Patreon, and that's cool. I get that. I mean, $3 is my lowest tier, and I don't think it's, it's a small price to pay, I think, for the work that I do. And, it takes time to create these videos, and they're not, it's time that I could be spending doing other things, but I choose to spend it sharing these, things that I do with you guys. So, if you want to support me, fine, that's great. If not, that's also cool. Like I said, I'll probably post the API key and app ID if you haven't already copied it from a screen grab that you may have done earlier. That's fine. You can use this app ID and API key to kind of get a feel for the server and kind of play around with things. That's cool. I'm completely fine with that. But in order to be able to manipulate rooms and create public rooms and that kind of thing, you will need your own login to the server, and that you can get by invitation after you join my Patreon. Okay? Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh yeah, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, that kind of stuff. And don't forget to tell all your friends, because, subscribers have been kind of slow in the last few months, but, that's my fault, because I haven't posted a lot of videos lately. So, my actual stats are, in the last 28 days, I've gained 11 subscribers. That is nowhere near, in a couple, like last year, I think I was up to gaining an average of 80 or so subscribers, every 28 days or so. So this is quite a, drop from my usual. So, and, again, this is all my fault. I stopped posting videos, and that's what happens when you neglect your audience. So I'm here to tell you that I am going to continue making videos. I'll never stop. There may be periods of time where I don't post any content, but that's only because I'm working on things in the background. So I'm working on content for you guys, and just know that there's always going to be stuff coming. All right? So anyways, again, please subscribe and like the video, or don't like it if you don't, and leave comments and tell other people about it. And I'll see you guys in the next video. All right. Thanks. Bye.